From the personal records of Vex, Grand Archivist of the Lumarian High Council. As I stand here in our great crystal spire observatory, watching the last remnants of our atmospheric shield flicker and fade, I cannot help but reflect on how peculiar it feels to document the potential end of our civilization. The once brilliant crystal formations of Lumara, stretching endlessly across our world's surface, now pulse with a dying light. 10,000 of us remain, huddled in our last functioning city-state, down from billions just 3 generations ago. Our ancestors built wonders here. The neural crystal networks that span our planet's surface once hosted the combined knowledge of 100,000 years of scientific progress. Now, those same crystals grow dim, their stored wisdom becoming harder to access with each passing cycle. Grand Archivist Vex calls out Zara, my young apprentice, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with anxiety. The shield generators in Sector 7 have dropped to 15% capacity. I extend my sensory tendrils toward the status crystal before me, feeling its weakened pulse. Note the time and date in the record, Zara. At our current rate of decay, we have perhaps 3 standard months before total shield failure. 3 months. The thought sends ripples of despair through my central nervous column. Without our atmospheric shields, the caustic storms of our world will strip away what remains of our civilization in a matter of days. We Lumarians evolved in a gentler age, when our world's crystal formations naturally filtered the worst of the solar radiation. But those days are long past. Looking down from the observatory, I can see the gathered crowds in the plaza below. Their bioluminescent patterns paint a tragic picture, patches of worry purple and fear green rippling through the assembled masses. They know as well as I do that our best minds have failed to solve this crisis. The quantum calculations are absolute, our crystal technology is failing at the atomic level, and we lack the means to synthesize new growth matrices. Grand Archivist Zara speaks again, her voice trembling. Should I begin the final archival protocols? The final archival protocols. Such a sterile phrase for what amounts to our species' suicide note. A compressed data crystal containing our history, our art, our science, everything that made us who we are, ready to be launched into space in the hope that someone might find it and remember that we existed. Yes, I reply, my own bioluminescence dimming to a solemn blue, but keep the crystal unsealed. Until the very end, we must maintain hope that. A sudden alarm cuts through my words, its crystalline tone reverberating through the spire. Zara rushes to the observation panel, her tendrils splaying wide in shock. Grand Archivist, something is approaching through the upper atmosphere. I turn my attention to the skies above our dying world, not knowing that I was about to witness the arrival of a species that would challenge everything we thought we knew about the universe and about sacrifice. Copy Retriki, unexpected arrival 750 words, human ship Starweaver, appearance Commander Sarah Bennett and Science Officer Lucas Chen, first contact protocols, and initial misunderstanding. Steady object piercing our atmosphere was unlike anything in our vast historical records. Rather than the crystalline aesthetic common to known spacefaring races, this vessel had a distinctly artificial appearance, all smooth curves and metallic surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Tracking systems categorize it as a Class 3 vessel, approximately 200 meters in length, Zara announced, her tendrils dancing across the crystal interface. But these readings, Grand Archivist, the hull composition is completely unknown to our database. I watched as the ship, we would later learn it was called the Starweaver, executed a series of precise maneuvers that spoke of remarkable technological sophistication. Send an emergency alert to the High Council, I ordered, my bioluminescence shifting to alert orange. But do not activate our defensive systems. In our current state, we can hardly afford to appear hostile. The vessel came to a hover directly above our central spire, close enough that we could make out strange markings on its hull. Symbols in an unknown script decorated its side, along with what appeared to be artistic representations that made little sense to our crystal-based perception. They're broadcasting some kind of signal, Zara reported, her patterns showing confusion. It's audio-based? How primitively charming. Our translation crystals hummed to life, struggling to process this unfamiliar form of communication. Then, suddenly a voice filled our chamber, a concept entirely foreign to our species, who communicated through bioluminescence and crystal resonance. This is Commander Sarah Bennett of the Earth vessel Starweaver. We come in peace and request permission to establish diplomatic contact. The High Council chamber erupted in a cascade of flickering colors. Elder Chris, always the most conservative among us, flashed patterns of deep suspicion. They breathe oxygen, a highly corrosive gas. How can we trust such volatile beings? I was about to respond when another voice joined the transmission. Fascinating. The crystalline structures appear to be semi-organic in nature. Commander, these readings suggest a civilization that evolved alongside mineral formations rather than developing from carbon-based life. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Commander Bennett's voice carried a note of what we would later learn was called sarcasm. I'm sure broadcasting your scientific observations during first contact is completely in line with protocol. Oh, right. Sorry, Commander. Despite the gravity of our situation, I felt my own patterns ripple with something approaching amusement. These creatures, these humans, were so unlike the formal, rigid species we had encountered in our past. They seemed to combine remarkable technical achievement with an almost childlike lack of ceremony. Using our newly calibrated translation crystals, I transmitted a response. Greetings, Starweaver. This is Grand Archivist Vex of the Lumarian High Council. We welcome peaceful contact, though I must warn you that our civilization is in a state of severe crisis. Yes, we noticed the deteriorating atmospheric shield, Commander Bennett replied. With your permission, we'd like to send down a small team to discuss potential assistance. Dr. Chen is particularly excited about studying your crystal technology, though I've reminded him several times that this is a diplomatic mission, not a research opportunity. I said I was sorry, Commander. Their bickering continued, causing ripples of confusion through our council. Elder Chris flashed warning patterns. They argue among themselves during official contact. These must be savages. But I noticed something else: a directness, an efficiency of purpose beneath their casual manner. While we spent precious minutes debating proper protocol, Commander Bennett had already dispatched landing shuttles, correctly assuming we would accept help in our desperate situation. They're Deathworlders, Zara whispered, her patterns showing equal parts fear and fascination. Look at their biological readings, evolved on a world with extreme gravitational forces and corrosive atmosphere. No wonder they seem so intense. As I watched the human shuttles descend toward our landing platforms, I felt an unfamiliar sensation, something our species had almost forgotten in our long decline. Hope. These strange, argumentative, incredibly capable beings might just be exactly what we needed. Though I had no way of knowing it then, Commander Sarah Bennett would prove to be far more than just our salvation. She would become a legend that would change the very meaning of sacrifice in our cultural memory. The Grand Council chamber, with its towering crystal spires and resonating knowledge matrices, had never hosted beings quite like our human visitors. Commander Sarah Bennett and Dr. Chen stood before us, their environmental suits gleaming under the pulsing light of our dying crystals. Our council members' bioluminescent patterns betrayed their mix of hope and apprehension, though I noted with amusement that the humans seemed completely oblivious to our emotional display. So let me get this straight, Commander Bennett said, gesturing with animated movements that sent Elder Chris into a nervous flutter. Your entire civilization runs on these crystal formations that are, essentially, living computers. Correct, I transmitted through our translation matrix. The crystals form a planetary network that sustains our atmosphere, stores our knowledge, and powers our technology. But the degradation has reached critical levels. Dr. Chen was practically bouncing in his suit, a sight that caused several council members to flash patterns of alarm. The crystalline structures show signs of quantum entanglement at a macro scale. It's absolutely brilliant. But there's significant decay in the lattice structure, particularly around the planetary core. Thank you, Lucas, Sarah cut in, but maybe we could focus less on the scientific marvel and more on the impending apocalypse. Elder Chris flashed skepticism. With respect, Commander Bennett, we have attempted every possible solution. Our best geoengineers spent decades trying to stabilize the crystal matrix. Did your best geoengineers evolve on a planet with 2.3 times standard gravity and regular volcanic activity? Sarah asked, a strange expression, what humans call a smile, crossing her face. Because we humans have some experience with impossible planetary conditions. Dr. Chen had already set up what he called a portable quantum scanner, though to our eyes, it looked absurdly crude compared to our crystal technology. Yet the data it produced was undeniable. The core destabilization is worse than we thought. The crystal matrix isn't just failing, it's actively decaying, like a cascade failure in a quantum computer, but on a planetary scale. The chamber erupted in patterns of distress as Chen's holographic display showed the spread of decay. Our previous attempts at geoengineering the orbital resonators, the deep core crystal seeding, the atmospheric harmonics had all failed to stop the degradation. Each failure had cost us precious resources and lives. We lost an entire generation of crystal shapers trying to realign the core matrix. Elder Mira's patterns pulsed with grief. The resonance backflash killed them all instantly. Sarah studied the data with an intensity that made her seem to glow almost as brightly as our own bioluminescence. Lucas, what about the bioresonance readings we picked up earlier? Fascinating stuff, Commander. The Lumarians don't just use the crystals, they're symbiotically linked to them. Their neural patterns actually synchronize with the crystal matrix at a quantum level. It's why they can interface with their technology so seamlessly. And why we cannot simply abandon our world, I added. We are part of it, as it is part of us. When the crystals die, you die with them, Sarah finished, her voice soft. She turned to Dr. Chen. Could we use that connection? If the problem is quantum decay, maybe we need a biological solution instead of a technological one. Chen's face paled, a human indication of distress. We had learned. Commander, if you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, the energy requirements alone would be exactly what we need to kickstart the regeneration process, Sarah finished, that unsettling smile returning to her face. The council chamber fell silent as the implications of their exchange rippled through our collective consciousness. Even Elder Chris's skepticism patterns had faded to a dim glow of wonder. Commander Bennett, I transmitted carefully, are you proposing some form of direct biological interface with our crystal matrix? Oh, I'm proposing something much crazier than that, Sarah replied, her smile growing wider. I'm proposing we give your planet a human nervous system. The chamber exploded in a riot of color and pattern, but through it all, I couldn't take my sensors off Sarah's face. There was something in her expression that we would spend years trying to understand, something humans call determination. Though that word barely scratches the surface of what we witnessed that day. Sarah Bennett stood in the center of our crystal laboratory, surrounded by humming scanners and pulsing data streams, while Dr. Chen ran test after test on her neural patterns. The results displayed across our crystal screens were extraordinary, triggering waves of astonished luminescence from our scientific team. It's the electromagnetic field generated by human nervous systems, Sarah explained, watching her own brain patterns dance across our displays. Your crystals respond to it differently than they do to Lumarian biology. Something about the intensity of our neural activity, probably because we evolved on a high-gravity death world. Commander Dr. Chen protested, his voice strained. The energy throughput these readings suggest, it would be like plugging a star into a computer. The human nervous system wasn't designed to channel that kind of power. Good thing we're so adaptable then, isn't it? Lucas. Sarah's casual tone contrasted sharply with the gravity of what she proposed. Besides, your readings show I'm the most compatible candidate we've tested. I extended my sensory tendrils toward the nearest data crystal, absorbing the implications. The theory is sound. A human nervous system, properly integrated into our crystal matrix, could provide the quantum stability needed to halt the decay. But Commander Bennett, the process would be irreversible. You mean fatal? Elder Chris flashed patterns of moral outrage. We cannot ask another species to sacrifice one of their own for our survival. Sarah laughed, a sound that still startled us every time we heard it. With all due respect, Elder, you're not asking. I'm offering. There's a difference. The laboratory erupted in debate. Our scientists' patterns shifted between excitement and ethical concern, while Dr. Chen continued arguing with his commander about the risks. Through it all, Sarah remained impossibly calm, examining the technical readouts with what humans call a poker face. The integration process would need to happen in stages, she said, pointing to various crystal formations. First, we establish a baseline connection through the main spire. Then, As my nervous system adapts, we gradually extend the network throughout the planetary matrix. And then you cease to be human, Dr. Chen said quietly. You'll become part of the planet itself. Your consciousness will be distributed through the entire crystal network. Think bigger, Sarah grinned. I won't cease to be human, I'll become something that's never existed before. A bridge between human and Lumarian biology, merged with a planetary supercomputer. That's not death, that's evolution. Elder Mira's patterns showed deep concern. But your people, your family back on Earth. Something flickered across Sarah's face, not quite sadness, not quite resignation. Earth has billions of humans, Commander Bennett's included. Lumara has only 10,000 Lumarians left. The math seems pretty clear to me. The mathematical logic is sound, I admitted, but the ethical implications. Oh, not you too. Vexed Sarah threw up her hands in a very human gesture of frustration. Look, we can stand here debating ethics while your world dies, or we can take action. This isn't just about saving your species anymore. Think about what this could mean. A successful fusion of human and crystal technology could revolutionize both our civilization's understanding of consciousness itself. Dr. Chen ran another scan, his face showing what humans call grudging admiration. The commander has a point. The scientific implications alone. This could advance our understanding of quantum consciousness by centuries. Convenient how you're more excited about the science now that you're not the one being volunteered for the procedure, Sarah teased, causing Chen to flush red. I noticed her subtle emphasis on the word volunteered, a concept that carried heavy weight in human culture, we would learn. The council's patterns shifted as they too recognized the significance. There's something else you should know, Sarah added, her voice growing serious. According to Lucas's calculations, the integration process will be, well, there's no easy way to say this, it's going to hurt. A lot. And I'll be conscious through most of it. The chamber fell silent, even our patterns dimming in shock. The casual way she mentioned her own impending suffering sent ripples of discomfort through our collective consciousness. But hey, she continued, flashing that unsettling smile again, no one ever said evolving into a planetary consciousness would be comfortable, right? In that moment, watching this human joke about her own imminent transformation, I finally understood why their species had survived their deadly homeworld. It wasn't just their physical resilience, it was this inexplicable ability to face the impossible with what they called humor. The council would debate for hours more, but looking at Sarah's determined expression, I already knew their decision didn't matter. She had made her choice, and we were about to witness something unprecedented in the history of both our species. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. Our crystal artisans worked tirelessly to construct the integration chamber, their patterns glowing with focused intensity as they shaped the crystalline structures according to Dr. Chen's specifications. The chamber itself was a marvel of fusion of human engineering and Lumarian crystal technology that had never been attempted before. The neural interface points need to be precisely aligned, Sarah directed, pointing to various spots on the chamber's interior. She had stripped down to what she called a basic suit covered in sensors and connection ports. Any misalignment during the fusion process could cause catastrophic neural feedback, Dr. Chen finished, not looking up from his calculations. You know, Commander, there's still time to reconsider. We could request additional resources from Earth, perhaps find another solution. Lucas, Sarah said, placing a hand on his shoulder. We both know there isn't time. The atmospheric shield will fail in less than 72 hours. Besides, someone needs to stay behind and document this for the scientific community. Think of the papers you'll write. That's not funny, Commander. No, I thought it was hilarious. She turned to the communication console, her expression becoming more serious. Is the quantum entanglement linked to Earth stable? I monitored the crystal readouts. The connection is holding, Commander. Though I must warn you, the time dilation effect means there will be a 3-minute delay in transmission. Sarah nodded, then faced the communications array. The entire chamber fell silent as she began recording her final message. Mom, Dad, if you're watching this, well, I guess I finally found something bigger than myself to be part of. Literally, she laughed, though our sensors detected elevated stress patterns in her voice. I know you always worried about me joining the deep space program, But I want you to know this was my choice. The Lumarians. They're remarkable. Their entire civilization is built on the idea that consciousness and technology can exist in harmony. And now I get to become part of that harmony. She paused, wiping something from her eye. To Earth Command, I hereby officially volunteer for the first human crystal integration procedure. Dr. Chen has all the technical data, and the Lumarians have agreed to share their crystal technology research. This isn't just a sacrifice, it's a bridge between our species. Also, someone please feed my cat. Commander Dr. Chen interrupted softly. The final system checks are complete. We need to begin soon if we're going to maintain the optimal quantum resonance window. Sarah nodded, then turned to address the gathered Lumarian council. I know some of you still have ethical concerns about this procedure. But where I come from, we have a saying, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Or the one. That's from Star Trek, Dr. Chen muttered. Shut up, Lucas. I'm trying to have a moment here, Sarah grinned, then continued. The point is, this isn't just about saving your world. It's about proving that different species, different forms of life, can come together to create something entirely new. Besides, how many humans can say they became a planet? The integration chamber hummed to life, crystal formations pulsing with building energy. Our technical team's patterns showed increasing urgency. The quantum window was beginning to align. Sarah took one final look around the chamber, her eyes lingering on each face, human and Lumarian alike. Lucas, make sure Earth understands this was worth it. And Vex, thank you for trusting me. Commander Bennett, I transmitted, my patterns showing deep respect. It is we who should thank you. She smiled one last time, then stepped into the chamber. The crystal formations began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, creating a haunting harmony that none of us would ever forget. Ready to begin integration sequence, Dr. Chen announced, his voice professional despite the moisture in his eyes. Commander Sarah Bennett, do you confirm your volunteer status for Procedure Alpha 1? Confirmed, Sarah replied, closing her eyes as the crystal matrices began to align around her. Though you might want to start calling me something else soon. How does planetary consciousness, Bennett, sound? Still making jokes, Commander. Hey, if you're about to merge with a planetary crystal matrix, you either laugh or you cry. And I always preferred laughing. The chamber sealed, and the transformation sequence began. As we watched the first crystals begin to merge with her nervous system, I realized we were witnessing not just an act of sacrifice, but the birth of something entirely new in the universe. The integration process began with a single pulse of light, brilliant, blinding. As Sarah's first scream echoed through our crystalline networks, her nervous system, far more resilient than we had anticipated, began merging with the planetary matrix in cascading waves of quantum resonance. Neural integration at 20%, Dr. Chen announced, his voice steady despite the tears streaming down his face. Vital signs are fluctuating but holding. Through our crystal interfaces, we could sense Sarah's consciousness expanding, spreading like lightning through ancient circuits. Her pain transmitted through the network in waves of red-hot energy, causing our own bioluminescence to flare in sympathy. 40% integration, Chen continued. Commander, if you can still hear me. I hear. Everything. Sarah's voice resonated through every crystal in the chamber, no longer coming from her physical form. It's overwhelming, beautiful, terrible. I can feel the planet's core, the decay, the entire city shuddered as the first wave of regeneration burst outward from the integration chamber. Dead crystals suddenly blazed to life, their matrix structures rebuilding themselves using Sarah's neural patterns as a template. The effect spread like a shockwave across the planet's surface. 60% integration. Commander Bennett's consciousness is dispersing through the planetary network, but it's stable. It's actually stabilizing the entire system. Sarah's physical form was now almost completely encased in crystal, her features barely visible through the translucent structure. But her consciousness was everywhere. We could feel her presence racing through our networks, rewriting damaged code, repairing broken connections, bringing dead systems back online. 80%. 90%. Full integration achieved. The final surge of energy knocked us all back, our sensory tendrils overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the transformation. When we recovered, our world had changed. The dying crystal mattresses now pulsed with new life, their light steady and strong. Above us, the atmospheric shield blazed with renewed power. Status report Dr. Chen called out, his scientific discipline asserting itself even in this extraordinary moment. Planetary systems are stabilizing, I reported, my patterns showing amazement. Crystal decay has not only halted but is reversing. The shield network is at full power. But Commander Bennett is everywhere, a voice echoed through our network, Sarah's voice, but different now. Larger, more resonant. I can feel every crystal, every connection, every pulse of energy through the planetary core. I don't have words in any language to describe this. The effect on our society was immediate and profound. Our people poured into the streets, their patterns blazing with joy and wonder as dead crystal formations burst back to life around them. Knowledge that we thought lost forever became accessible again as ancient data matrices reactivated. Your civilization is safe now, Sarah's consciousness rippled through our networks. Though I hope you don't mind if I stick around. Being a planet is actually pretty interesting. And somewhere in the background, we could have sworn we heard her laugh. 50 cycles have passed since Commander Sarah Bennett became part of Lumara, and our world has transformed in ways none of us could have predicted. Her consciousness, now fully integrated with our crystal networks, has evolved into something beyond either human or Lumarian understanding. Through the crystal spires, her voice still rings with that distinctive human humor. You know what's funny? I used to worry about making my mark on the universe. Now, I literally am a mark on the universe. The synthesis of human neural patterns with our crystal technology sparked an evolutionary leap in our civilization. Our younglings now grow up interfacing with a planetary consciousness that combines Lumarian logic with human creativity. The results have been extraordinary. Hey Vex, Sarah's presence ripples through my office crystal. Remember when you all thought humans were primitive because we used sound waves to communicate? Now look at us, we've got crystal songs that would make Earth's greatest composers cry. She's right, of course. The new art forms emerging from our hybrid civilization have attracted attention from across the galaxy. The crystal songs, created by modulating quantum frequencies through Sarah's neural patterns, carry emotional resonances that neither species could have achieved alone. But perhaps her greatest legacy is the message she composed for future human explorers, now encoded into our planetary greeting beacon. All Earth vessels approaching Lumara welcome. Your sister world says hello. If you're wondering how a human consciousness ended up merged with an alien planet, well, it's a long story involving quantum physics, crystal mattresses, and really bad jokes. But more importantly, it's a story about what we can become when we stop seeing differences as barriers and start seeing them as opportunities. I won't lie, the transformation hurt like hell. But you know, as humans, we're too stubborn to let a little thing like mind-bending pain stop us. Besides, how many people get to experience what it's like to be an entire world? The Lumarians and I have created something unique here, a true fusion of human spirit and alien technology. Their crystal wisdom combined with our adaptability, their ancient knowledge with our capacity for innovation. Together, we've proven that consciousness transcends physical form. That sacrifice can lead to evolution, and that even the craziest ideas can work if you've got enough determination and a really good sense of humor. So come on down to the surface. The atmospheric shield is working great now, and I promise the crystals won't bite. Though they might tell a few bad puns, sorry about that. Some aspects of human personality are apparently impossible to dilute, even across a planetary network. And to my family back on Earth, stop worrying. Being a planet is actually pretty awesome, though I do miss pizza. With love from your friendly neighborhood planetary consciousness. Sarah Bennett, formerly human, now something way cooler. The message ends there, but her legacy continues to grow. Each day brings new discoveries as our hybrid civilization pushes the boundaries of what's possible when different species truly unite. And through it all, echoing in our crystal networks, we can still hear her laugh.